Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed, how are you?
Oh, yeah, not too bad. It's my birthday on Monday, and I'm just thinking about, I'm getting closer to renewal on the carousel. So just feeling a little bit down.
Yeah, no, I know how it is. Boy, I wish I could feel young again.
Hey, I can help with that. I can get you to new you. We can do
Oh,
those cheekbones and maybe color your hair. Hey, just stand still. All right, you
okay.
ready?
Mhm. How do I look?
You look okay.
Yeah, but they're still gonna see how old I am. Hey, what's up with that flashing?
I can fix that.
Okay. Ow.
See, much better. Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck.
And welcome to another exciting, at least we hope it's exciting, episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thanks so much for joining us. If you're a regular viewer, thank you so much for coming back. We've got a great show for you. We're looking at a classic science fiction movie from the 1970s. But before we start, if you want to find out a little bit more about the show and when new shows drop, what can you do, Mitch?
Oh, Ed, it's as easy as pressing a button and getting your own drug-induced orgy happening in your room. You just press the button.
What? I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I was just trying to. I'm in theme with Logan's Run, and that
I know.
I know. Okay, well, okay. Ed, it's just as easy as tracking down a runner. All you do is press the button here, and you will be subscribed and notified when Ed and I go on an excellent adventure. And that's all there is to it, Ed.
And we're heading to the 23rd or 22nd.
Depends. Yeah.
It does depend century, and we're looking at the classic science fiction from 1976, which is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year, Logan's Run.
45.
That's right, 45. Yeah. So yeah, we'd be long. We wouldn't be in the world of. We're getting closer to Peter Ustinov than
I could
York.
Double that pretty soon. Yeah,
unfortunately, but Logan's Run, it was a classic and a very popular film of the mid 1970s. Did you go see this in the cinemas?
You know what? I did actually. My mom took me and my cousin Gwyneth, and the funny thing is, we didn't get to see the whole movie because the film started, the lights went out, and we saw a trailer for another movie that was coming out next summer to a galaxy near me. And that movie was the movie I wanted to go see. Forget Logan's Run. It was a little movie about a boy, a girl, and a universe called Star Wars. And it was the first trailer that was really kind of wonky. They had Chewie and 3PO. And I remember the audience was laughing their head off because nobody knew what that was. But when it blew up at the end, it says, coming to your galaxy next summer. And I said to my mom, I was 10. I was 10 years old. And I said, we're going to go see that one. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's that. We're going to see that science fiction movie. So my mom had taken me to Logan's Run because I was a big science fiction fan. I like Star Trek, and she was all into that, Planet of the Apes as well. So when this came on, Logan's Run, we didn't know what to expect. And we knew Michael York, the actor who's the star of the movie, because he was in the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers, and he'd been around. So the movie's on. And again, I'm 10, and my cousin Gwen, I'm 9 days older than she is, so she's 10 as well. There's a scene that comes on that I just referred to when Logan's in his apartment wearing his swanky robe there, and he's pressing buttons for some companionship.
Yeah, they're on the circuit. He's looking.
They're on the circuit. Yeah. It's kind of like the old-fashioned swipe left, swipe right type of thing. It was ahead of its time. This way, you didn't even have to use a phone. You just pressed a button, and people were there.
Yep.
And they were interested in some carnal knowledge, and then they threw up a big pink cloud of like happy smoke dust or whatever, and everybody was having a grand old time. And the women were kind of scantily clad, and being a strict Catholic schoolboy and stuff, my mom wasn't too happy for me watching this, so she took us out of the theater, and we had to leave right after the opening. Though I did want to stay because that Jenny Agutter, she was something else. But anyway, we left and went next door to see Mel Brooks's silent movie. with James Caan and Marty Feldman and Burt Reynolds, which was a good movie as well, but
Yes.
it was not Logan's Run. So to answer your question, I did see some of it in the theater, but my mom pulled us out of it and said, I don't know if that movie's appropriate for young children. So I had to wait to see it on TV years later.
Yeah, I didn't see it in the movies. I saw it a little bit later on, and having just watched it again last night, a little shocked at the amount of nudity and
and there was even more nudity in it. They actually took a lot of it out, which is
that's right,
crazy.
which is often what happens in our show as well.
This is our show. That's what we're.
Do you think we've got pants on at the moment? No, but it was. I was quite shocked. It was still like I think like G rated. It was not a.
No, it was G rated, but then they had to put some other scenes in it to get a PG because G was like death.
Yes,
you didn't want a G. That was a Disney picture. That was like a Swiss Family Robinson. You weren't going to get box office if you had a G rating. So they added some violent scenes and some shooting up stuff.
Yeah. So the film was based on the novel. In the book, basically, there's this society where people only live up to the age of 21. Yeah. And then so there are some changes to the book, but it was a very popular book. And it soon drew the attention of the movie studios.
It did, because they had a lot of science fiction going on. You had 2001, you had Planet of the Apes, and then in the early 70s, you had things like the Omega Man, Soylent Green, and Westworld, which is a big popular thing. So folks were looking and scrambling for the next greatest science fiction fantasy movie there was. And lo and behold, comes Logan's Run, which wasn't as depressing as a lot of the other ones. It wasn't that, beat up post-apocalyptic world of like the Charlton Heston films. This was more of a very clean and polished futuristic world that had one of the most amazing sets ever built. The city that you see in Logan's Run with the little pneumatic tubes of the cars going back and forth, they actually built that in a soundstage, and it was like 4 feet high buildings, and it went on and on and on. And in fact, and you know this because I know you're a big Mork and Mindy fan, that model was reused several times. In fact, it was on Mork and Mindy's honeymoon episode where they go back to Ork. You see it in the background. Yes.
Who knew they were, living there? I think it's quite impressive. And I remember I saw Logan's Run after Star Wars, and I go, how can this be just a year after Star Wars? The effects and everything like that. However, watching it again in high definition, and a lot of the problems they had back then with model work is, even though that was like a bigature, practically, it was, huge. Yeah. It's very hard to scale water and things like that.
I was going to say the water's what ruins it when they show the water effects.
It is still
looks very, like a bathtub.
Still very impressive. And I know, again, I say this every episode, we're jumping all over the shop.
No, we are. But no, you're visually, that's the first thing that hits you.
Yeah. Oh, and it's a nice long tracking shot, and it goes. And it reminds me a little bit of when you think back to 2 years later, Superman the movie, Trek. Where I was going to go. Where they're going to Krypton.
Oh yeah.
And and they're going into the dome, hedonistic city where everyone's dressed. Everything's clean,
flowing
they're
robes,
in different colors, and it's almost a little bit Greek or Romanesque in there.
No, you're right in that. You're right in that too, because some of the costumes for Logan's Run were inspired by the Dionysian old. You see the paintings and such. But the reason I mention that is because that the soft clothing that the women use, very simple, just clothing draped over their body. There wasn't any fancy accessories and such. That becomes the style for the disco era. You'll see that look with the off the shoulder, that type of there hanging out there, and it's just one piece of material there. That's going to be like Donna Summer, all those, big time singers in the late 70s would have that outfit. If you go look back, and you'll say, hey, wait a minute, that's the Logan's Run look. So I'm just throwing that out there for you, because that was one of the things I learned while researching this project. Did you know that each color meant something too in the background?
It does. It represents your age group. So you see the children in yellow. Yep. Then there's the greens, the reds as they get closer to
the reds as they get closer to when their light turns red there. Yeah.
So I always just figured, well, all you just need to do is get some dye and
change your clothes.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that because they had the women originally, they were just literally nude and just had this drape of clothes. But the problem is you couldn't do that because it was kind of uncomfortable. So says Jenny Agutter, who wore that outfit, and she was not happy with that outfit. She says, in fact, the reason why she doesn't go to comic book conventions and sci-fi conventions is she doesn't want to have to autograph half nude photos of herself. That's the reason why she doesn't do them. Because I looked at her, I said, she would be great as a guest because she wasn't only in this, but she's also in American Werewolf in London.
She is.
And she's
Walkabout,
in the Avengers
the Australian
movies.
film, and
yeah,
was she?
She's in. Yeah, she's on the council. She's in the Winter Soldier, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That's her, and she's also silhouetted in when they have this like Powers booth. They have this like council that runs Shield. Yeah, she's one of them as well. So anyway, but going back to her, she was a pretty big. I don't know if she was a big actress, but she was pretty famous in the early '70s for some other parts that she had done.
Yeah, she did in Australia. She did Walkabout. I remember seeing that
Walkabout.
film.
Yeah.
She's yeah, I remember seeing her as a child. I had a bit of a crush on her. She was
everybody
she was pretty
did.
gorgeous
Yeah,
in Logan's Run. I mean, it took a while for them to get the film. You know, I think the book came in 1969.
It did. Yeah.
This came out in 1976. George Powell was originally involved.
George Powell was. He was. Yeah.
And
Irwin Allen was attached to it as well.
Yeah.
We talked about him in our disaster movies.
That's right.
Because he just came off of Towering Inferno. Everybody wanted this property. It was really, the thing to have, but MGM wasn't letting it up. They were like, no, we're going to hold on to it. In fact, they spent a lot of money on this movie with the sets and everything. It was like $3 million.
It ballooned out to, went to from $3 and went to $9 million because it just, with the cost of everything, which is quite funny because again, you think of the costuming while they were it's a visually striking film. But the costumes are pretty, there's not a lot to them. Have a look.
No, and I just
if you look at my Sandman outfit, there's not a lot to it, really.
No, I realized what I was meant to say when you said they could have dyed their clothes. I forgot to mention that the women were complaining about the costume, so all the women had to wear dyed pantyhose under their little dresses. So they because they couldn't do makeup and have everyone's legs look flesh colored. You'd have to hire more makeup folks. That's more money. That's more makeup. So they're like, you know what? Just give them stockings and they can put them on. Because if you look in the distance, you'll see they're wearing nylons and then they have like little padded shoes on their feet and such. But and the guy's outfit, the one that you have on too, it's supposed to be a very simple outfit. But again, color wise, all the Sandmen, the one that go around killing everybody, kind of like Blade Runner, they're all in black.
Yes.
So they're supposed to represent death. They stand out. And then like you said, the different colors for the people that are enjoying their lives. And then when they go to kill themselves during Carousel, they actually have on just cheap hockey masks that were done at the time. That's all it is. Nothing fancy. They just went to a sporting goods store and they wear that. And it has that skull-like look to it with the black eyes and the nose. But that was just right off the racks hockey equipment.
So as you may have alluded to while you're watching this, if you don't know the story, essentially it's set in the future, hedonistic society. Basically, they live up to the age of 30. They have these crystals on and they change color. Once they start flashing red, they need to go to the carrousel. The 2 R's, it's CARROUSEL in this one. And people go and watch and they ascend up to this giant crystal. And then they blow up and they're basically hoping to be renewed and, to become a new.
Well, that's the thing too, because
rebirth.
there's no intercourse. Children aren't born through, sex between a male and a female. They're actually, I don't know if they talk about it in the movie, but it's in the book. They're just like grown in chambers.
Yep.
And there's no sex for procreation or anything like that. It's not to rebuild the human race. It's here you are. It's very sterile. And the babies are just incubated like in a test tube, and then they're just born and they move on. And it really is kind of a soul. I don't know. Would you say it's a soulless society? There's really no emotion. It's just kind of like, hey, go have fun, party.
It is. It's just living for the moment. It's a little bit
living
like
for the moment. Yeah.
When you think of the people, in Zardoz, there's that society on the other side. This is sort of like Zardoz in reverse, where you see the hedonistic society and then you move on. So
or like Wall-E too. Remember the people in Wall-E were just so fat and bloated, they couldn't even move anymore. Everything was done for them. They just kind of floated around those chairs and ate food and watched TV, and that's all they did.
Yeah, it's a and they're controlled by this computer essentially,
it's
which
like Logan's Run without the sex. That's what Wall-E all is. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That should have been on the poster.
Well, no, it's one of those things we're talking in the 70s that the women's liberation's going on and all that type of thing. So to have all these women basically almost nude walking around this film is kind of ironic because here's the outside real world that we all live in, and you're trying to equal rights and all that type of thing. You go to the movie, it doesn't seem so evolved. It's like everyone's practically naked, just walking around and taking drugs, having sex, looking good.
Yeah.
It's very weird how they treated everybody in this film. But
I know. So so you've got Michael York. He's the Sandman. He's Logan 5.
Logan 5 in the movie, Logan 3 in the book.
That's right. Yes. So he and Francis, his like offside other Sandman buddy, they end up seeing a runner. They shoot him with those fantastic guns that have got the like the four jets of flare, which is really cool. And he notices that he's holding an ankh, okay, which is a symbol for life, or the symbol for sanctuary, okay.
Yep.
So he hands it in. He goes to this beautiful like the computer console area, which reminds me a little bit about Star Wars with the black polished floors and everything. Essentially, the computer sends him on a mission to infiltrate sanctuary and to try and find out where the runners are. And as a result of that, he ends up being on the run himself. He meets up again with Jenny Agutter, who he notices is wearing the ankh. Basically, they find out that the person that he had killed had a face reconstruction. So they go to New U, where Farrah, the beautiful Farrah Fawcett, is there.
First movie role. Yeah.
Yes. And she was hot from, in general, she was hot from Charlie's Angels.
No, she wasn't on Charlie's Angels yet.
Well, Charlie's Angels started in 76. So I think this just started to blow up her. This
was done in 75. She gets the part because Michael York, the actor who plays Logan, sees her on a tennis court and just says she's a thing of beauty, goes back and tells the producers, hey, you just got to hire this woman. So she gets hired. And at the same time, in the real world, she's marrying Lee Majors, who's the star of the $6 Million Man, one of the most popular shows on television at that point. So her star was rising so much so that she's actually on the movie poster for such a small role.
And she's on the credit list there as well.
Farrah Fawcett Majors.
She's in it, not for a lot, but she's working there. Where you get the face reconstruction,
the facelift stuff, and that's the director's son that plays the surgeon. That's Michael Anderson Jr.
Yes, which was kind of interesting. So, so there's some really interesting, concepts, and basically Logan ends up going on the run.
Yep,
he escapes. His best friend, Francis, the other Sandman. Actually, if you notice, we're saying that they're wearing black and gray. The people on the hover, the cleaners who clean up the bodies or dispose of the bodies, notice they're wearing gray and black. They're totally reversed, in their outfits. And it's really cool the way they dissolve the bodies. They put this solvent over them and they pretty much just dissolve them, which is really quite interesting.
They went there and they met the robot. They went through the ice world where he Box, which was I can't think of the actor's name
Roscoe Lee Brown,
Lee Brown. He's got that great voice.
Yes.
And he's in that costume. And he's preserving the humans. He's basically freezing people. He like captures them and he puts them on ice. And those are all real actors. They're not just like a prop or
they're painted white.
They painted white and they had them stand behind a plastic translucent thing. If you watch them, you'll see some of them are blinking. If you watch the movie well, you can see some movement going on there, because I don't know why they just didn't take a photograph and put it in the back and backlight it, but maybe it's too much money. It's cheaper to get a person to stand there naked with some again nudity. They couldn't stop with the nudity with this thing because one of the other deleted scenes is Box prepares Michael York and Jenny Agutter to be frozen. So there was more scenes with them completely naked.
Yes,
they deleted that out because they didn't want a rated R rating. They wanted a PG, but I don't know. They were obsessed with getting everybody in the buff in this picture. So
it was the 70s. Now Roscoe Lee Brown,
Logan's streak is more like
or Logan's buns. you can say.
Logan
But
smiles at me.
well, I remember when I first saw this and seeing Box, who I thought was this mirrored robot, and
Yeah,
you
it
know,
looked
you
like
could
3PO.
a little bit, you know, again, this is a precursor to Star Wars, and I'm going, oh, this is really kind of cool.
It was
But
cool. Yeah.
but I remember going, I know this voice,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
dawned on me because I listened to Roscoe Lee Brown on the Story of Star Wars
Yes.
record,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
he was the narrator, and I listened to him probably every night for 2 years when I used to listen to that. So
I have that. I still have it. That's the blue cover with 3PO and R2 on it.
Yes.
The story star. Yeah, yeah. And the books inside, the 13
Yes.
page. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
Roscoe
That
Lee
is him.
Brown. So
Yeah.
there is a Star Wars connection.
Well, you know what's funny about that? You see him move around the set in the movie, and I thought he was always on wheels. No, that's just him on his tippy toes, moving that costume around. So he's in that. Because if you see Box, his arms move around, but his waist is one big block of metal.
Yes.
And I assumed he was on wheels, but no, that's just him walking about the
watching
set
it on it's on Netflix in high def, and you can actually see Roscoe Lee Brown under the mask.
Oh,
it's really quite it's quite obvious.
Well, there's a lot of stuff you could see even in the movie. I remember that part very distinctly when they go to carousel and the bodies start floating up. You could see the wires on the stunt folks. In fact, they had trouble with it. Originally they built the set and it was going to be on this revolving stage, and they had these harnesses, and it was really involved. Like each one was on a different wire, and you lift them up and such, but they all got tangled up the first time they tried it. So they had to shut down the production and like slowly untangle these stunt folks that are like, 20, 30, 40 feet up in the air. That's not a good job to have. But then they rigged it such a way that they never bumped into each other again.
Yeah, that was quite they had a number of really complex visual effects in it. And some of them again were quite poor. Like when they're on the those travel tubes, the blue screen work on that is horrendous. For some reason.
But they do that hologram effect, and that was like the first time they ever did one in a movie.
That's a real hologram.
That's a real hologram of Michael. Yeah, Michael York's face. That's a real projected light image. It doesn't look great nowadays, but back in the day, I remember I went to a science fair in grammar school. I think it was in grammar school, and we saw a hologram. It was a hologram of chess, and what you had to do is you had to look through this little box, whatever, like that, and it was this light projecting the chess pieces on a board, and that's all there was. We're talking in the 70s technology. Nothing was moving, nothing was like animated. It was just a projected little image onto a wall, and it just was looking three-dimensional, like you could put your hand underneath it. So you got to give them credit for this movie,
because he was moving, his mouth was
moving. Yeah, I mean, that's the next time they use holograms like that in a movie, I'm gonna say, is Raiders Lost Ark. When they started doing the ghost coming out of the ark, they had kind of an effect they were projecting onto screen, but that's neither here nor there. But Logan's Run has, for all its bad matte paintings, because there are a couple of bad matte paintings. When you look at Washington DC, you could definitely tell they're like
they
painting.
Do linger on those, but that's by Matthew Juricic, worked on Ben-Hur. He's a famous matte artist in the industry. They do linger on a lot of those for a long time. Yeah. But you know what? I think maybe I was just going
fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just nerded out. We know a matte painting. I can tell in a movie, I'm like, that's a matte painting, that's a set, that's this, that's that. But no, it all works. What is the other odd thing? Like sometimes you could tell when the actors are running and you can see they're wearing shoes, and there's the whole scene where Jenny Agutter slips in that scene, what we just talked about with Roscoe.
In the ice,
running.
Yes.
She just literally, they kept it in the film. I don't know why they didn't refilm it or edit it better. She just takes a tumble right on screen, and she's falling, and the camera goes up and you can see her underwear and the whole works. I'm like, well, this is kind of awkward, but they left that in the film.
And there's a few things in the fight with Richard Jordan, who plays Francis. So they end up walking through all the overrun Washington DC. They end up and they find an old man who's Peter Ustinov, who improvised.
Wasn't that old, really, when he was in that movie?
No, but he improvised most of his dialogue, the T.S. Eliot poems that he's quoting. He's surrounded by cats. Essentially, what happens is they decide to bring the old man back to society, and let them know that no one is renewed, and that you can live a long and
You could go
you know,
beyond 30. Yeah.
that's right. So, and then the computer can't handle it. They interrogate Logan, and essentially things blow up and everyone's free, and
Yep.
hopefully they know how to survive without the computers. That's
I was going to say it's going to be a little rough going there. No, but coming to the other things, Peter Ustinov, I don't know if there's a 4K version of Logan's Run. I don't know that, but I did learn in the costume design that he has copper pennies, American pennies, for his buttons on his suit. It was supposed to be like he made his own clothes and such. So it's a really cool detail, but I don't know if you could pick it up on the home view.
I do know that you can see that his makeup ends about here.
Yeah.
And his wig is over,
Yeah.
but you can see the gap a little bit.
Well, when he went to do the Westmores, did the makeup on it, and he said, "Oh, I don't want to be in the chair for hours and hours to make myself look old." And I don't know which Westmore it was, but they looked at him and said, "Nah, it should take about 15 minutes," because he was already getting up there. You know, James Cagney, gangster star, Yankee Doodle Dandy, was originally asked to be the character of the old man, but he had turned it down since he had since retired from acting at that point. But that would have been interesting to have James Cagney.
Yeah, I think so. And William Devane was originally cast as Francis.
Yeah, but he stepped down. In fact, he did a movie that's so funny that you mentioned that. He did a movie in the 70s called the 13 Days of October, and it was all about John F. Kennedy and the Russians going at it over the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I think that's when he wasn't on Logan's Run, because I remember watching it here on television, and my mom was like a big fan of his, and she's like, "Oh, William Devane, he's President Kennedy." So I think that's the movie he stepped aside to do instead of Logan's Run. But he was a big deal at the time too.
Yep. They had Jerry Goldsmith do the score, and the score was a mix of electronic and traditional orchestra. So when it was in the city, the Dome City, it was a combination of strings and synthesizers and that sort of futuristic sound. And when they went outside, it was all orchestral, so the more organic sounds. So it's an interesting score there.
No, there's a lot of stuff going on in Logan's Run. I was thinking about some of the other weird parallels. I mentioned Farrah Fawcett Majors. One of the people that were up for the role of Jessica was Lindsay Wagner.
Yes,
who eventually would become the Bionic Woman, who was, Steve Austin, Lee Majors' counterpart there. She was up for the role, and they wanted Robert Redford at one point, but he was a little bit too old, and I don't think he would have done this science fiction, so he didn't take the part.
Again, the science fiction at that point was not, like you were saying about those films, they were reasonably popular, but they weren't, huge box office hits.
Yeah, it wasn't A-list actors didn't do science fiction. I mean, you had Sean Connery doing Zardoz, but at that point in his career, Sean Connery was kind of not the big deal anymore.
He had finished Bond at that point, because I think that was very early 70s. Logan's Run was a big hit when it came out. It saved MGM.
It made like $25 million in the first couple of weeks after. That's
which at
big
the
money
time
back
was
then.
huge. I mean, it made its budget. They wanted to make a sequel. The author had written another book, but again, that didn't happen. So they decided to make a television series.
Yeah, I was going to say they went to TV. It didn't happen because Star Wars came out and everybody wanted to see that big happy spectacle. And Logan's Run, it's not upbeat. It's not a downer, but it's not Star Wars, so that was a little hard sell. And the TV show happened. Yeah.
So it had Gregory Harrison, who I remember from Trapper John
MD. He was Gonzo Gates.
That's right. And it only lasted 13 episodes, but
it's not that good. No,
it had DC Fontana and quite a few
David Gerald
writers.
Yeah, David Gerald, who was Land of the Lost guy that I just saw this summer at my show. He worked on it, but he actually didn't take a writing credit. He was very upset with the way the show was going. I mean, and one of the writers of the Logan's Run show was involved. It wasn't the guy, it wasn't Clayton, it was the other fella. And they just didn't like the approach of the show because it wasn't the book.
It was essentially look, in the pilot, it essentially retold the movie, and then they would just go, they'd be on the run, they'd have a robot, Donald Moffat, who would be like the moral compass of it, and then they would go to another, like there were different cities all over the Dome City, so they'd go another one, and then something would happen and go to another one while they were on the run. It's sort of a bit like think Incredible Hulk. you know, where he was being constantly chased by the reporter or whatever.
Yeah, Jack
It was
McGee.
yeah, it's a sort of you know,
It's the
similar,
fugitive. It's the
similar.
fugitive.
Yeah. You're exactly right. Similar but different. There
Yeah,
weren't
but
many.
there were.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say there are actually 3 Logan's Run novels. There's Logan's World. I think the next one is where and then their third one is really odd. He goes to an alternate dimension, an alternate world, and he has aliens come back with him to liberate the planet. It's almost like the same story where they're being subjected.
Yeah, they
to
go
this
to the don't they go to the moon, or they go to a colony, and then they have to come back. So that might be something you're interested in. You know, if you collect memorabilia, I know you can get some. There are costume replicas, probably much better than this one, that you can get for the Sandman. Mego were going to produce some toys for the TV show, but it got cancelled after 13 episodes, so it didn't go that far. The comic book,
7 issues. Marvel Comics put it out, and what's interesting about the Marvel comic is issue 6, which I have in my hand, is actually worth a bit of money because it features nothing to do with Logan's Run at all, but it has the first solo adventure of a character named Thanos right there. That's the only reason why this book's worth money, because Thanos makes his appearance in this by artist Mike Zeck, who lived in New Haven right around the corner from my house, which is the God's honest truth. So Mike Zeck, George Perez was the artist on this, and Logan's Run comic. It's not a bad comic book, actually. I mean, it's pretty decent. It's a retelling of the movie, and they got there's Box on the cover, and there's Jenny, and everybody's there. Not Jenny.
No,
that's Forrest Gump.
Yeah,
and Rocketeer. Yes, Jessica in the movie.
Jessica, sorry. The only other,
Jenny.
The only other memorabilia I have is this, which is the Super 8 version, and this cuts down the movie into 8 minutes.
That's always amazing to me. It's like we've got this elaborate 2-hour movie. We can put it down in 8, like the Cliff Notes.
Yeah,
like
this one they get to outside. And then you see the sun, so it sort of ends. It ends like THX 1138, where and then it stops there. So you never get to meet the old man.
No, I see a lot of THX in this movie, when the whole idea of him trying to escape, and then it just ends. So you could put these on a double feature.
Yeah,
it's like on the other side of the country. This side's THX 1138, and meanwhile, over in Pleasantville, they're having sex and orgies over here and getting renewed and blowing up. No, it's an interesting movie. It's well done. I mean, it's thought-provoking. People have to live their lives, and who's to decide who lives or dies and all that. So it's really 70s. They had that different approach to science fiction, because once Star Wars comes out, then it becomes a comic book and a big bubblegum movie, and space cowboys and all that stuff. Oh, I forgot to mention, speaking of the space cowboys, Ice Pirates was another movie that used the city of Logan's Run in it. You could see that in the background with Robert Urich and gang.
Yes.
So, and Mary Crosby in Ice Pirates. I'm sure the producers or the people that made that model were so happy when they saw that.
Well, unfortunately, no one saw Ice Pirates, but
I mean, and you know what? They had space herpes in Ice Pirates.
I know,
which was a result of the free love going on.
We're gonna have to do an episode on.
We got to do Ice Pirates. Everybody loves the Ice Pirates.
You know what? If you have a film or a TV show or something that you want us to take a look at, I won't say in depth, but take a look at and put our spin on it, let us know in the comments below. How can you, by the way, actually, you know what? I was going to say find out, but I forgot to say that they've been trying to do a remake of reboot of Logan's Run for years. I think was
Leo
Bryan
DiCaprio
Singer involved at some point, and trying to get all that, but to no avail.
No.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say Leonardo DiCaprio was the closest I think they ever came to redoing it, and then he was out of the picture because it got too old. And then they just like 2017, a couple years ago, I heard they were going to try it again. I can't remember who that was attached this time, but I don't know.
If you are attached to Logan's Run, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. But how can you find out more about our show, Mitch? What was that thing again?
Ed, it is as simple as going to carousel and blowing yourself up. Instead of glowing red, just hit the red button that says subscribe and notify. And you too can go on a run for your life with Ed and I as we fight the never-ending
I've lost
evil
my sticker.
of aging.
Yeah, that's right.
There.
We do. We've got our Zoom settings on high, as smooth as you can get.
It's a good movie. I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to recommend it, just sum it all up. Logan's Run. It's a different movie. It's not like your typical science fiction. There's not alien monsters and such like that. It's just man versus society. Is that the theme of this one? Yeah.
Yep.
And that Jenny Agutter's kind of hot. So.
Yeah. There you go. That's it for this week's episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care and bye for now.